Hello and welcome to this video where I will be showing how to use xlSlim to analyze New York taxi trip data. I've recently added DuckDB to xlSlim. DuckDB is a fast in-process analytical database system with outstanding query functionality. First, I will show my analysis of the taxi trip data within Excel, drilling into differences between the various taxi types. Then I will show the technical details of how I was able to analyze 450 million rows of taxi trip data within Excel. Let's look first at total fares collected per company per month. We can see that Uber are in the lead, collecting an amazing $400 million per month, followed by Lyft and the traditional yellow and green taxis trailing far behind. Uber has increased slightly over time from January 23 to August 24. Let's look next at the number of trips per company per month. Uber leads in the number of trips per month as is expected, with Lyft and the other traditional taxi companies following behind. How about the total miles traveled per company per month? As expected, Uber are in the lead here, followed again by Lyft, then yellow taxis and green taxis. Now it would be more interesting to see the average fare charged per company per month. This is interesting. We see that Lyft, Uber and yellow taxis are all charging comparable average fares, with green taxis being notably cheaper. Let's look at the average miles per trip per company per month. We can see that green taxis travel far further on average. This is expected as green taxis serve the outer boroughs of New York. Let's remove the green taxis. So there is not much difference in the average miles between Lyft and Uber, and even yellow taxis. I'm more interested to see what is the average fare charged per mile. This is interesting. So we can see green taxis are far cheaper per mile. However, Uber and Lyft are very competitive, and unexpectedly we see yellow taxis becoming cheaper since April 24. Finally, let's wrap up by analyzing average tips given to drivers. Wow, we can see that yellow taxis are tipped significantly higher than green and Lyft and Uber. In fact, Lyft and Uber taxi drivers are tipped only an average of $1 per trip, 1/3 of the average tip of a yellow taxi driver. Clearly, it's better to be a yellow taxi driver. Let's dive into the technical details of how I was able to do the analysis. All the data is available from the New York Taxi and Limousine Commission. The data is available as a series of Parquet files, one file for each type of taxi for each month. So we can see there are files for green taxis, yellow taxis, and high volume for hire vehicles. The Commission also provide data dictionaries. I have downloaded the Parquet files for 2023 and up until August 2024. In total there are 10 gigabytes of Parquet files. Let's see how many rows are within those Parquet files. DuckDB has the ability to query multiple Parquet files in a single statement. So we're going to do a select count star from all the Parquet files within that taxi data folder. We'll use xlSlim's DuckDB query function to execute the SQL statement. And we can see there are 457 million rows of taxi trip data. Let's look at the first yellow taxi Parquet file in a bit more detail. We want to find out the details of the columns and their data types. So we'll use the describe statement. Describe select star from our Parquet file. We use F2 to re-execute, And we can now see our field names and the data types. Those fields are not too descriptive, and some are a bit cryptic. Fortunately, the Taxi and Limousine Corporation supply data dictionaries. These PDFs describe the fields. Each Parquet file format has its own data dictionary. The green and yellow taxis have very similar data dictionaries. Using the information within the various data dictionaries, I was able to work out which fields I would like to extract. Looking first at the yellow taxi data, I was able to determine which fields were of interest to me and then create a view over those fields. So I used the DuckDB create or replace syntax to define a view over the yellow taxi Parquet files. The date trunc function is used to combine all dates into the month of the date. Again, I use the DuckDB query function. Notice how this time I pass in a database argument. This is so the views are usable in subsequent queries. This actually creates a little DuckDB database and creates the view in that taxi.db database. We can see that the function returned an NA. This is merely because our statement had no return. We can neaten that up a little bit by adding a select statement to the end, which will confirm that our views were created correctly. F2 to re-execute, and we can see our view was created successfully. I repeat this process for the green taxi data. You will notice that the SQL is very similar to the yellow taxi data. I copy the function over from A2, F2 to re-execute, and the green taxi data view is created. Finally, I create a view of the Uber and Lyft data, which is in a separate series of Parquet files. Notice how I had to add quite a few fields together to get the total fare. And I needed to use a case statement to indicate Uber and Lyft as the taxi type. I copy the DuckDB query statement over, F2 to re-execute, and my other taxi data view is created. Finally, I need to combine these views together so I can see all the information at the same time. I create a new view, monthly taxi data, that unions the yellow taxi, green taxi, and other taxi data views. So I first query the yellow taxi data and I group by type and pickup month. Then I query the green taxi data, again grouping by type and pickup month. And finally I query the other data, grouping by type and pickup month. All of those are unioned together to create the monthly taxi data view. Copy the function over, execute, and our monthly taxi data view is created. Let's verify that the data looks as we would expect. So we select star from monthly taxi data, using a limit so that we don't return all data, bearing in mind that there are, after all, 500 million rows. The query executes and we can see the data is as we expect. We have a mix of different taxi types. We see the month, the total fares, the miles, the number of trips, and the tip. What we would really like to see is more aggregated information. This is where DuckDB's pivot statement is very useful. So we can pivot the monthly taxi data on the taxi type. Then we sum the total fare, we sum the number of trips, we sum the miles, we calculate the average fare, the average tip, the fare per mile, and the average miles. The pivot statement is extremely powerful and useful. F2 to re-execute. And the query completes in an astonishingly short amount of time, bearing in mind that 10 gigabytes of compressed Parquet files have been processed and 450 million taxi records have been analyzed. We do some formatting to neaten it up. Display those dates as simply month and year. Format the numbers nicely. We'll need a few more decimal places on the averages and use the format painter to copy those over from the green taxi averages to the Lyft averages and to the Uber averages, and finally once more to the yellow taxi averages. And there we have it. All our taxi data nicely summarized by month, taxi type, and various metrics. Now we can insert a line chart, do a little bit of tidying up, and the data is all ready to analyze to our heart's content. Thank you for watching this video. Please give xlSlim a try. You can download a free trial from xlSlim.com. Goodbye.